He was found guilty of murder and 4 counts of attempted murder, and was sentenced to death. While incarcerated, he was despised by his fellow inmates, who condemned him for murdering his own son. Ronald's execution took place on March 31st, 1984, just after midnight. A crowd of demonstrators gathered outside as he died, some even chanting, "Trick or treat." For his heinous crime, Ronald has become known as the man who killed Halloween.
Hey guys, it's Randomizer here. Today we're going to be talking about Ronald C. O'Brien. He was a father. Well, in the end, a bad father, because on one Halloween night, he decided to lace pixie sticks with poison, feed one to his son, and almost fed one to his daughter, but she didn't end up eating the pixie stick. And he ended up killing the son with the pixie stick, and at the same time, he collected life insurance policies, that money from that he took out on his son, before the poisoning happened. I'm going to explain more about that in this video, so stay tuned for that coming up right now. This is the rise and fall of Ronald O'Brien. Ronald Clark O'Brien was a normal kid growing up. He helped give birth to his son Timothy O'Brien in 1966. He also had a daughter, Elizabeth, who was born around the same time that Timothy was. He seemed like a normal father, and that nothing much could go wrong in his life, right? Well, sadly, on October 31st, 1974, tragedy struck. That night, Timothy O'Brien, along with his sister and 2 other children, went trick-or-treating, accompanied by the father, Ronald, and the parents of the 2 other children that I just mentioned. When the group knocked on one particular door, there didn't seem to be anyone home, so because of that, they moved on pretty quickly. However, Ronald chose to stay to see if anyone would end up answering the door to that house. Eventually, he quickly caught back up with the group of 7, but now he had 5 pixie sticks in his hand, which were given to him by the homeowner, apparently who seemed to just take a long time answering the door. He distributed each of the sticks to the kids that were in the group, including his 2 children. Later, he gave a spare pixie stick to a child that wasn't in the group of 7 originally. However, the trick-or-treating session didn't last that much longer, as it was starting to rain, and everyone in the group needed to get back inside their respective homes so that the kids' candy couldn't get wet. Before bed, Timothy asked his parents if he could take a dip into his candy collection. They agreed to his request, and Timothy started by trying the pixie stick that he received from his dad. Little did he know it would end up being a huge mistake, a fatal mistake. When he poured some of the powder from the stick into his mouth, he complained that it tasted unusually bitter. That's when Timothy then realized that something was wrong, and he immediately rushed to the bathroom with severe stomach pains. Shortly after that, Timothy began to convulse, and then went limp in his father's arms. Timothy O'Brien sadly passed away that night as he was being rushed to the hospital. Shortly after his death, a pathology report revealed that the pixie sticks had been laced with a poison, in fact. That poison being potassium cyanide. Timothy consumed enough poison to kill 2 fully grown adults. That's how much poison was in half of a pixie stick. Just imagine how much cyanide was on 5. Yeah, I know. Hell a lot, probably. Let's move on now. Thankfully, none of the other children in the group have even touched their pixie sticks. As it turns out, theirs were also laced with poison as well, as I kind of mentioned before a little bit. The pixie sticks were opened, had cyanide put in them, and then resealed with a stapler. After the news of Timothy's death came to the light to the public, the community was in uproar, and the parents turned in their children's candy to the police, fearing that a psychomaniac was poisoning Halloween candy for the kids in the neighborhood. At first, it was really believed that a psychomaniac, in fact, wanted to kill dozens of children by poisoning their Halloween candy. However, over time, the cracks in Ronald, Timothy's father, the cracks in his character began to unfold when he failed to give a description of what the person looked like or even what the house looked like that supposedly handed out the pixie sticks, despite the fact that they only visited a handful of houses in that neighborhood. So it should have been fairly easy for him to remember at least what the house looked like that handed out the candy. To make things even worse for O'Brien, he in fact was the only person ever to hand out pixie sticks to kids that night. No other houses in the neighborhood even handed out pixie sticks at all to kids. However, the truth eventually followed Clark O'Brien back to haunt him, and it ended up being revealed what really happened to Timothy on that fateful Halloween night. Ronald Clark O'Brien was in fact the one who put the poison in the candy. He then faked waiting at that house to create a fabrication that he was just waiting at the house that he knocked on, just to grab some candy, just to grab those pixie sticks. The pixie sticks were all intended for the 5 children that were taken out trick-or-treating that night. The reason why he poisoned his son with that pixie stick is because he wanted to collect on various life insurance policies that he had taken out on his son. He also might have taken out some on his daughter, although she never ate her pixie stick in the end. To this day, nobody really knows if he intended to kill his daughter to collect life insurance or not, or if it was just solely meant for his son. But that's up for speculation, I guess. He gave the other children the pixie sticks so that he could cover up his tracks and make it appear that somebody else was really responsible for handing out the pixie sticks. As it turns out, O'Brien was over $100,000 in debt, and that the life insurance payout that he was set to receive would pay off his debt. Throughout his trial, Ronald maintained his innocence. However, the evidence throughout the trial pointed to him being the murderer. Additionally, with 2 people testifying against him that months leading up to Halloween, he asked about cyanide poison and how effective it was and where he could buy it from. And that led him to getting sentenced. He was found guilty of murder and 4 counts of attempted murder and was sentenced to death by hanging. Overall, that was Ronald Clark O'Brien's story. He started out as a pretty loving and caring father at first. However, for whatever unknown reason, he got himself over $100,000 in debt. And instead of taking any personal responsibility or finding a responsible way to fix his debt, he chose to take out his son in an attempt to collect life insurance money for him so that he could pay off his debt. Sadly for him, though, well, I should actually be saying luckily instead, he instead got caught and arrested and sentenced to death. I am overall really happy that Ron is gone. By doing what he did, he made Halloween feel worse for everybody. And it was hard to get over for a long time after that. Whatever happened, whatever he was doing to get himself in debt in the first place, nobody really knows that to this day. Although the fact that he was in debt in the first place when he had children was questionable on its own, and the fact that he exploited his own child and killed him for money is just really, really sickening and distressing to me. It absolutely boils my blood when children are harmed physically, mentally, and emotionally, or even killed. I hope Ronald becomes completely forgotten about in everyone's mind, and I hope that people do not forget about young Timothy O'Brien. I imagine if he were still alive today, he would be doing great things out in this world because he seems like a very bright and young kid growing up. It's just sad to see his future taken away from him by a greedy con artist. Anyways, though, that's about it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and let me know your thoughts on Ronald O'Brien's story in the comments down below to this video if you want to.